All right, so after we left Yunnan, we flew back to Hong Kong. We got to Chaozhou, birthplace, the mythic birthplace of Gong Fu Cha. That's the city that's right outside of the Phoenix Mountains, the home of Dancong Oolong, where they make all these really fancy, awesome cultivars and turn it into this amazing, super fragrant roasted oolong. Wow. So, this is getting away from this Western Chinese landrace, birthplace of the evolution of the tea plant, and getting further into the smaller leaf varieties that they're cultivating. So what we're cherishing about these teas is less about terroir, but the emphasis is more on what have the humans done? What's the ingenuity here that they've put on top of this raw natural product? So there's just like hundreds of cultivars, and they can all be processed in these different ways. There's this saying that the water is too deep, meaning the market is too complicated. Like getting in and finding what you want, exactly what you want, is too hard. The water's too deep. It was just this warning of like, oh, you're new to town, you've never been here? Oh, wow. Like, poor you kind of
Good
thing.
luck. Yeah.
Good luck. You'd be down in Chaozhou, we'd be having tea with like this really great person that had a tea shop, and we're like, what are your experiences? Like, what do you do to get good tea? And it was all about being trustworthy and reliable and having good connections. And he was like, I still get ripped off. He was like, and I was born in Chaozhou, I still get ripped off. He's like, I got 10 kilos of bunk tea in my attic. Like, he rolled up to do the deal, and they sold him tea that wasn't good, and he still knows where they live. Like, they're willing to just rip people off under their nose.
So the producers are controlling the market in Chaozhou. Are they coveting the secrets to it, smoke and mirrors, or is it like you have to find your way to the seventh chamber to get the secrets? Or
It did feel really mythic like that, right? Where it was like, how do we unlock this? And we were asking this guy, well, okay, so what are the factors that typically influence why a tea is affordable or more expensive? And, it was like factors like elevation, how high up the mountain was it grown, how old are the trees, the acclaim of the tea producer, the varietal that they're making, what makes this tea the price that it is, what are the factors that go into it? And he was like, none of that matters, it's just so you know. It's like one guy can get this price and the other guy can get this price. There's no overarching organization.
So it's it's fixed. The market's fixed.
It's just no one keeping it in check. He did reference there was this one organization that was doing kind of standardization work and trying to make it more agreeable and trustworthy and approachable. And it turns out we met the vice president of that organization, and that's the tea producer of this tea. He's an established guy. He lives in Phoenix Town, and Mr. Wen. Everyone in that area who inherited good trees back in the day, by the way, is their last name, their surname is Wen. And so, you found the right people. If you go there and
if you find a Wen,
they're like, Mr. Wen. And you're like, awesome. So there's also another Mr. Wen who was up at Wudongshan, the highest elevation. So in Phoenix Town, where the first Mr. Wen was the vice president of this organization, he has trees in the Zhongshan, the middle mountain area. So it's not the highest stuff, so it's not the most coveted. And he's a very skilled tea producer. He insists on every single step, it being small batch and him overseeing it, especially the ending charcoal roast, which he would never outsource to anyone else. He would never do electric. He insists on only doing charcoal. And this was found out through like a lot of different questions and just hanging out with them. And it wasn't his own admission or flex to it. And so these are all things that allowed us to really trust him. And everything checked out, and I think the icing on the cake was that I should be doing this Chaozhou style with 3 cups, but we'll do the Gong Fu.
Yeah.
But he really checked out on all the levels. And I think the icing on the cake was him being the vice president of this organization who does basically the only standardization of all these factors to say, hey, this is what the price should be.
Look at that color. It's like rosé.
It's like rosé, like peach. Crazy. Yeah, smell this tea, by the way. Wow.
Yeah, it's like a fresh cut peach or something.
It's ridiculous. I think someone said grilled peaches.
Okay.
Yeah, I think someone said grilled peaches on this one.
So there seems to be a standardization of production, and there seems to be people are adhering very strictly to cultivar and their cuttings from mother trees, and so like there is direct line and clarity of like the trees itself. There are coveted steps to produce these teas, but then once it hits market, it's a free-for-all kind of. It's controlled by the producer. The producer can do what they want.
Yeah, it's all about who you are. You know, I'm sure there's some people that get a better price than me, and there's some people that get a way worse price than me. And I think in those situations, you have to do good on your part, to be like, this tea producer wants to support me in the mission that I'm on. And that's working some of the angles that you as a tea adventurer person have. Like, what do you have to offer to this situation? And, my mission with Rivers and Lakes is to spread tea and this heritage, this rich cultural history, this amazing relationship between plants, just one plant, and humans. I see how amazing it is, and I want to spread that. I want to spread the awareness of it. And that's what I tell them, just quite bluntly, like, what you're doing is freaking incredible here. And I think people really like to hear that, and I show them proof of how I'm going to do it and why I'm doing it and all that. And Charles Wu, he came over here yesterday, the day before, and he, like, I was telling him all his stories, and he's like, Gus, man, he's like, you're like on some sort of like dharmic journey, man. Like, this is like incredible. And what, and he was just, really hyping me. I was like, yeah, whatever. But, it was really special to hear that, because it was like someone could see what I was doing. And then I realized that's what I'm doing to them. Like, I mean, not in a Charles Wu sort of way, like in that sort of like level of emphasis, but I'm making them feel good about what they're doing because I see them. And I'm like, this is freaking incredible. And people in the United States, by and large, need to know about this. People in the Western world need to know about this, and I want to help with that. I think someone who's trustworthy like Mr. Wen, he sees that, and I could tell that he was really moved by the end of our day together, with the things that I was able to express to him. So, I mean, an important way to move through the industry as merchants, especially from the West, is we become transparent vessels so the story of the producers can reach the consumer. That the less stories we tell about our experience, the clearer the communication from the producer is. And right.
And that, seems like that's, a huge revelation that you've expanded upon, because I know that you've thought about this for a long time, but that you've expanded upon with this trip is, it seems like there's even a bigger clarity to what is happening on the ground, and a stronger devotion to amplify those voices, through you, rather than amplifying your voice necessarily.
It's a big brand decision, I think, for a lot of folks on this side of the world. Do I just take full credit and just obfuscate the tea producer and all that, and it just be like a very solidified branding thing? And there's good reason why people do that. It's like brand trust, and that, it's not necessarily giving complete homage to the tea producer, but I think I need to do that. It just feels right. It's just who I am and what I want to do, and I think that can still breed brand trust in a different way. It's an interesting market approach, but I think it's important for us as the traditional colonists of the world and the consumers of the world. We need to be given credit where credit's due. So yeah, I hope to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it is, when I'm on the ground at least, what I'm experiencing is that seems like the best approach. You know, like I can pull up my website and be like, here's your profile that I've made basically under the tea that you sell, and I can show that to Da'a or Mr. He or whoever, and they're like, oh wow, cool, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And I think it really is meaningful for them. You know, and it was really funny in Iwu with Mr. He, he pulled up his TikTok or his Instagram, or not his Instagram, his WeChat, and there's like a pinned post that you can make on, I think, the TikTok or whatever, kind of like how you can do it with Instagram. And I was at the top of his pinned post from 5 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he had pinned it like a long time ago. And to him, it's just like, you know, a meaningful symbol of like us shaking hands. Here's this Lawai, this foreigner shaking hands with him, and to other Chinese nationals, it's like, oh wow, this guy's really doing good business, and you know, I can be aware of that. Like, it's not necessarily me personally; it's what I represent, but I'm willing to use that angle and say, I am a foreigner, and I want to have your tea in a wider sphere, in a wider arena. And he made like another TikTok video with me there, of course, and you know, like I grabbed around the neck and I was like, you know, this is my friend, like, you know, like Lao Pengyo. And that blew up. It got like a bunch of views, and so it's special on not only meaningful levels but also superficial, and it's fun.
Well, no, and that's, you know, it's nice to hear that they're excited about that. They are given this bridge to other markets and other parts of the world. You know, it's a Western thing to rebrand things and really call it our own. I always joke with you about tea is like the ring of power. You know, it's like
I love this.
We take
People need to know about this.
Yeah, you know, I see it a lot where tea merchants feel like tea is like the ring of power from the Lord of the Rings, and we hold it and it's my precious and it's mine, and I you know, I know everything about it, and I hold it tight.
It's the best.
Yeah. You know, maybe it's something about the plant itself that makes us do this, but, you know, or it's just our capitalistic instincts.
Yeah, it becomes obsessive. And I think people can get really identified with it, put their ego into it, you know, and it becomes like, my tea is the best.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good practice to really just keep on pointing that attention back upstream and be like, yep, they're doing it. They're doing this. And yeah, I have a part to play in it. And it's just being a purveyor, you know? Like, I can't do that work. That's hard work. They work really, really hard for what they're doing. And it's generations upon generations deep. It's their heritage. And I can't take credit for that. I can't do that work. That's them. And so I just want to, you know, show that and recognize that, give them credit, and allow people on this side of the ocean access to it. And that's just my part to play. So
It's important, though, you know, especially as the sons and daughters of colonialism, you know, like, it's kind of our duty to unravel what we've done to, you know, exploit cultures in the Far East and bring it back to that. This is not our product. Like, it's their product, you know? And we're here to tell their story, you know?
that's a profound idea. I mean, I think I used to have a bunch of permaculture books and studied, like, you know, plant polycultures and stuff like that, and people doing land regenerative projects, and you know, you would hear these things of white Americans basically, you know, going off grid and tending to the land and having a relationship with it, and them saying it was really healing because of just how much the land has, over the last few hundred years, has been kind of ravished and abused, and how healing that was, not only for the land to be regenerated like that, but for a part of themselves. And I wonder if that's part of this too, where it's this full circle of like, you know, like, I have English heritage, and you know, you look at the whole Robert Fortune situation and how much heroin was put into China back in the day by, you know, English traders, and maybe we can do good on this whole situation and finally give credit where credit's due and pay a good price for it, and you know, make this something that's mutually beneficial instead of exploitative.
With Chaozhou, the birthplace of Gong Fu Cha, what did you see about how people pour tea in Chaozhou and in the region in relation to how we see in the West of, I'm just going to say this term, Chinese tea ceremony. I know that's not an actual thing, but this perception of Chinese tea ceremony as Gong Fu Cha, the incorrectness of that statement, and then what did you see on the ground? Like, how are people brewing tea? Did everyone have 3 cups when they would pour you tea? Like, what was the formality of brewing styles in Chaozhou?
I feel like the formality was de-emphasized completely. There was a structure, but it was so worn in that, know the rules to break the rules, and it's less prim and proper reverential tapping at the table, and more just like hanging out and shooting the shit and just being real. And it just seemed like it was as natural as them making eggs in the morning or doing whatever. It's just casual. But yeah,
Is it always 3 cups at every table? It wasn't
always 3 cups. No, okay. I think that's the traditional format, and you might even see a teapot with the traditional format as well and all that stuff. But by and large, what we saw was Gaiwan, however many cups there were here was the amount of people at the table that they were serving. And they would not decant it into the gongdaobei. You did not see this around. Okay. Actually, you know what? Every once in a while you would. Because it became time for everyone was just either bowing out or like sipping slower or still in it. And say you're up at Wudongshan and like there's these old bushes that really to see it through the whole session needed to last like 20, 30 steeps in. And so what you'd either see was maybe a gongdaobei would come out, or their guy ones are so small. This is like a large one compared to what they were using, and it was just stuffed with leaves at that point. And they brew it hot boiling water, and sometimes they would just pour it straight into your cup.
Wow. Okay.
Straight into your cup, and then maybe a little bit was left over. They'd put it in theirs, and then they'd hit it again, and they would just. And there was no and this was kind of throughout China, but definitely in Chaozhou, there was no emphasis on just the first steep and then the second steep and then it all broken apart. It was like kind of lines being blurred, whether like there was just a bunch of leftover tea in the gongdaobei that they were mixing in that next steep with, or like in your cup, if you weren't finished, oh well, you're getting more. And they're not like letting you finish necessarily. They're blending the entire session. So I didn't see that successive cookie cutter. Here's the second steep. Here's the third. Let's talk about it. It was just like, here's the succession of this entire session, basically. And
so it's not about the first steep, savoring it, analyzing it, moving on to the next. It's just the tea is just flowing.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that's just me having tea with the farmers.
Yeah.
Less in the tea house, less in the formal situations. I'm sure that formality is still there, but I think by and large, if it's just day-to-day people just drinking tea, the formalities are out the window.
Some things that I saw in China in 2019 is that they were able to kind of pivot, that it would be very informal, but then if it needed to be a little bit more professional, there would be a little bit that would change, and then they could kind of go back and change how they're doing things, but it's like that the formalities are kind of integrated into their movements.
Yeah, I think there was distinct things that you would see in Chaozhou that were distinctly Chaozhou that you could tell that they, as almost like a brand would, you just want that continuity, and so they're going to use these very, very small cups, and I have a couple of Gaiwans around that feel like how thin that is, how light that is. The Gaiwans are the same way.
Oh wow.
It's like an eggshell, and I already broke one because I just put it down a little bit too hard. And it's like very, very, very thin porcelain, very small. Stuff it with leaves. Don't use a gongdaobei at first, and then you're getting your tongs and taking each cup back to the tea table and just pouring in at least for the first like 4 or 5 steeps, hanging them out. If someone's still hanging in, then maybe. By the time the leaves expanded, you pour boiling water on it. There's only like a cup worth anyway, so you just pour directly into someone's cup. That was by and large what I saw. But
Were there any like tea shops or a place that you could experience a more formal presentation of tea? Like,
I'm sure there was, yeah. But
did you ever see anything like that?
We went into Mr. Wen's daughter's tea shop that was in town, and her husband was pouring tea, and he had like a button-up shirt on, and he had all the things, and it was really nice, and he did kind of what I just said though.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't super prim and proper, but he got the cups back. He never touched them with his hands, did never use a gong dao bei, and was just pouring directly into the cups. And I'm sure there were way more formal situations that you could seek out and get. And again, we never saw the teapots though. It was crazy. We were all expecting like these extravagant teapots. We were all expecting the chapan with the circular thing so that you could fit the teapot and the 3 cups and do it all right there and try to do like a dry serving thing. No, never saw that either. It was always like a tea table and sloppy. And a lot of times it was just, Mr. Wen was like this, threw it down, poured it out, and it was like the level of heat he was working with and the quickness was like impressive. Yeah. It was like so hot, so fast, off the cuff.
Well, and I think that kind of, in a way, answers my question of that, in the West, we have a tendency to hear something like Gong Fu Cha and, Gong Fu Cha, the art of tea, or, that it will be considered to be a tea ceremony, which, for the record, Gong Fu Cha is not a tea ceremony. But, what you quickly uncover about Gong Fu Cha is that it is a practice to enhance your ability to brew tea and to integrate it into how you move and how you do things, and even that idea of like having super hot water to do it and just throwing the lid on and then kind of pouring. That is not in any way a ritualistic way of doing it. It's just you have integrated a confidence in your body to move through the brewing of tea to serve your guests. Yeah. And it shines stronger as a way of life rather than a ceremony or a ritual that we are presenting. It's just integrated into our daily lives to do something at the level of a badass.
Yeah. I think it's a school of thought around preparation, just like there's probably schools of cooking certain things a certain way, but yeah, it's less reverential, less spiritual, less ceremonial than you would think. Yeah, what do you think about this tea?
It's amazing.
Nice.
It's really, really, really fruity.
I feel like there's a little bit of a critique that people have about Dancongs, which is valid, that they have this astringency. You push them too hard, they can easily get too bitter. And I think a word on brewing these, one thing we might want to, just give it a free pass on is that, we're talking about Chaozhou style brewing, this Gong Fu Cha, where it's just hot water, fast steeps. Well, these cultivars co-evolved with that brewing method, and so cultivation of these different varietals was artificial selection, of course. People being like, I like this characteristic, let's pull this out more and let's have it like this. They never selected for it, probably, when they're brewing it Chaozhou style for longer brewing. They're not selecting for that. And so maybe in the coevolution, when it's kind of co-evolving with Chaozhou style brewing, it was never selected for longer style brewing. And
it's supposed to be just flash brewing.
Yep. And so, it'd be interesting to run some tests. What temperature water does it need to be? What is the volume of the vessel? To maybe have an alternative. And, we have a little bit of a history with this with Dobra, where, like some of the suggested brewing is like 90 degrees Celsius for a minute and a half. But I think it really shines when you hit it with hot water and you brew it really fast. I think that hot water extracts certain things like sweetness and aromatics that I think a lower temperature doesn't. So I don't know. Yeah, just a word on brewing.
So maintaining high temperature,
Yeah.
but flash brewing, very short brewing.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing there, you know.